Hey guys and gals, it's been a minute. I figured I'd try shooting one of my vlogs with my cowboy hat on here. See how it goes, I guess. No, I'm not like a rancher or anything. I don't really have like the cowboy profession, but I've always felt like I was kind of a cowboy at heart. It's like I love horses. I like older country music. The newer stuff is yeah. So I kind of liked having the cowboy hat to put on now and again, but I digress. Wanted to make a blog today. Been kind of contemplating a lot of stuff the last week or so, and during all this contemplative processes, I wound up going back to some of my old stomping grounds, as I like to call them. I was born in Topeka, Kansas, but my family moved out to Colorado when I was 3. And I pretty much grew up either in or around Colorado Springs. My family bounced around quite a bit, especially when I was very, very little. But it was mostly, like I said, in and around Colorado Springs. We spent a few years down in Fountain, Colorado, in the trailer park. Spent, I think, about 6 years in a house in Colorado Springs. And then we stayed in the Springs for about another year. Then we moved up to Green Mountain Falls. Then we moved up to Woodland Park right before I basically moved out and on my own, more or less. So there's that. But anyway, I decided to kind of go visit some of my old stomping grounds, anyway, or most of them. Drove through Fountain a couple of times recently, just to see the old town, some of my old stops from back in the day. And went by one of my old houses in the Springs. And the thing I can say, especially like for Fountain's case, it's definitely grown up. I lived in Fountain from probably, I want to say 93, 94 until about September of 97. We lived in 2 different trailers. But I spent a few years in Fountain, and I remember that. I still remember the trailer park as I was a kid. If you're curious, it was the Chris Mobile Home Estates. Like I said, it's been so long since you lived there, I don't think it really matters now. But I went back there and just the trailer park itself has changed quite a bit. A lot of the trailers that were there when I was a kid are gone. Some of them are still there. There's still probably a handful of old trailers that I can tell just by looking at them. They're old enough that they were most likely still there when I was a kid. I think there was probably 1 or 2 I kind of vaguely remember from being a kid. But a lot of the trailers there are the newer ones that you see nowadays, the newer mobile homes and stuff like that. Some of the old carports are still intact too. I remember growing up back in those times, almost every trailer had a carport attached to it. It was like an old wooden setup. It was like half carport, half shed. Not all of the lots have them anymore, but there's still a few that do have them. And it was kind of nice to see that, but kind of shocking to see it too, because it's wood, and I don't know when they were originally put in, because I really don't know how old the park itself is, but I'm like, they were there in 94, 95, 96, 97, and they're still there, which is amazing to me, quite honestly. Probably some good sealant used in them or something, I don't know. But one of the sadder things is there was like a playground, like a little kid's playground that sat at the edge of the trailer park. And back then it was just surrounded by a chain link fence that sat right at the edge of the trailer park. And the trailer park itself sat right on the edge of Interstate 25 and it was exit 128, the Santa Fe Street exit, I believe it was. So it's just like you could see the exit, like you could see the bridge and you could see the interstate from the playground. But like I say, there was this chain link fence that went around the playground so the kids wouldn't, get crazy and try and run out to the interstate, I guess. I feel like we knew better back then versus nowadays. But quite a few years ago, that playground got wiped out, and I guess a sound wall was put up in its place, so you can't see the interstate from the trailer park anymore, which is kind of sad. I felt like I felt like it cost the view of some really good sunsets, because there was always really pretty sunsets out there from the playground, especially. But at the same time, being the age that it was, if it was sunset, usually right after came street light, and the street lights would come on, and it was your butt would be back on the porch by the time the street lights came on. But it's just sad to see a lot of that stuff gone. And I had like two of my best friends at the time. They lived in an apartment complex that was pretty much across the street from the trailer park. We'd walk down to the end of the trailer park, cross the street, and there would be their apartment complex. Although usually, more often than not, they would come from the apartments up to our trailers to come hang out and play and stuff like that. But, like, some of the old apartment buildings are still there, but the vast majority of them have been wiped out. Beyond that, like, a lot of the old houses are still there, but especially, like, once you get into Fountain itself, it's just, a lot's changed. I went to 2 different elementary schools in Fountain. One's long gone, long shuttered. It was Lorraine Elementary when I was going. And then I think it turned into a high school briefly, and now it's like a semi-closed, like, community center, I think. I'm not exactly sure what's going on with it, but it looks like it sits empty for the most part. And then I went to Mesa Elementary. When I was a little older, I think I was there, like Lorraine, I know I went for 2nd and 3rd grade, and for whatever reason my family switched me over to Mesa for my 4th and beginning of 5th grade year, because the beginning of 5th grade year was when we moved up to the Springs. But even Mesa, just that school has definitely changed a lot, like a lot. I barely recognize it now from when I went versus what it is now, which that comes with progress and changes in education and time and stuff like that. And I get it. It's just kind of, it goes back to, it's just kind of sad, like, nothing's the same. And there was a diner down there in Fountain, like right off Santa Fe, which was probably the main street for Fountain, versus like Main Street, which went through like the heart of downtown. But the main drag Santa Fe, there was a place called the Coke Diner, and I forgot what intersection it sat off of. But it was there for a long time, and I always liked their hamburgers. Always thought they made good coleslaw when they would make coleslaw. And I guess, like, the last time I drove by, which was a couple of days ago, I know it stopped being the Coke Diner, changed its name to something else, and last time I drove there, the little advertising storefront signs, like, pretty much being taken down, and it looks like the building's pretty much closed up, which is really sad. It's just, the one thing I remember about Fountain and that I loved about Fountain was just a lot of the little mom and pops that were down there. A lot of the smaller businesses, and I think there's still a few down there that are hanging on, but it looks like it's been mostly either the buildings are closed up or they've been taken over by like the big chains and stuff like that, and I don't know, it's just kind of sad. And then, I drove up to, here around Colorado Springs. I drove by my old high school, which was Mitchell, and even Mitchell's kind of changed from the last time I was there. And now, granted, it's been almost 20 years since I graduated. I graduated back in 2005. But I'm like, that's changed. And we spent about 6 years growing up in a house that was literally about a block away from the high school. And even that house has changed quite a bit. And long story short, sorry, the thing I'm getting at is just, it's sad. I feel like in a lot of ways, it's hard to go home again, quote unquote. You try and go back to like your old stomping grounds or your old home, and it might physically be there. It just might not be the same home that you remembered. And it's just kind of sad, kind of weird, just when you kind of yearn for the past, like I tend to do these days sometimes, and you can't get back to it. It's interesting. And I'm just wondering if any of you guys and gals have had similar experiences, with either going back to where you grew up and things like that, or if hopefully maybe the places that you've grown up really haven't changed. But that's all I got for now. I just kind of wanted to share my experiences with you guys and see what you thought. Hope you're having a good day, week, weeknight, weekend, whatever time it is, wherever you may be, and I'll catch you in the next one.